Now we're recording. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, and welcome to the Blurring the Lines podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bell. This is episode number 210. And joining me today is my always co-host, Peter Nikolaidis. Sometimes he's the host. And then joining us also today is Russell Carriere. Welcome, Peter. Welcome, Russell.
Great to be here.
Thank you very much.
So, Peter, are you getting ready for marathon season?
Well, okay, since we have a guest, I won't go into full details. I was gearing up for marathon season. I was thinking because of all the time I took off this winter due to having a knee surgery, that I was going to come back strong this fall. But I am pleased, with a question mark, to announce that my suspicions were true. And after 5 years of telling my doctors that I had a torn rotator cuff and them telling me, no, you don't, just go back home, just take painkillers, just do physical therapy. Finally had an MRI and they're like, hey, look, torn rotator cuff. So I will be going back for a repair on this one, which apparently is more difficult and has a lower success rate. Yeah, that's wonderful. So I won't start running. I'm running now until next week, and then I will probably not be running again for a couple of months after that. So best case scenario, half marathon this winter, probably.
Cool. Well, my oldest daughter's running a half marathon tomorrow.
Good luck. Good for her.
She wanted me to join her. Yeah. She wanted me to join her, and I said no. Well, yeah. Well,
I know a guy.
You know a guy. Yeah, I'm about 15 pounds more than I want to be running a marathon or a half marathon.
Training for a marathon will do something to those 15 pounds. Just saying. I was 150 pounds after my first marathon, and that was after gorging myself at the food station, drinking beers, eating snacks, and coming home. So I would say I was probably like 140 when my normal going into it weight was around 165.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I weighed 140 in middle school, I think.
That's what I was thinking.
I probably did too. I remember weighing 196 in junior high. So yeah, there you go.
Well, cool. Well, Russell, thanks for joining us here. And so your company is First Choice Business Brokers.
That's correct.
And you live in East Tennessee, but you're in the Nashville market, right?
So I'm in Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Nashville.
So the whole state, practically.
Yeah, pretty much.
You get to Memphis when it calls for it.
Yeah.
Like when you have to go pick up a FedEx package or something.
If I have to.
If you have to.
So pardon the East Coast boy here. Like, when you say Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, I'm like Tennessee,
yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tennessee with music, Tennessee with barbecue. That's all I get.
Yeah. Tennessee with football at Knoxville.
Yeah.
Well, and I was in Texas this week, and they're like, "Oh, UT, you guys are also UT." I said, "No, we are the UT."
Oh, you're not going to do that, are you?
I know. Now they're in the Southeastern Conference. They're in our football league, and this is going to be confusing.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Russell. I've got a list of questions. Peter always has questions, so he doesn't even have to generate any. But we were talking. So I was on Russell's podcast this morning. He's focused on business and helping businesses with podcast advice, and he paid a lot of money to get me onto the podcast, and
Did you
the
pay it all
advice,
back to him to get him onto this
yeah,
podcast?
the
Yeah.
the advice that his listeners got was what it was worth, the
And
value was
It was great.
what he paid
and
for it.
since this is this a barter agreement now? Do you both have to pay taxes on each of these
Oh
transactions?
man, yeah, you
Because
shouldn't
somehow
have
I
said
think I'm
that.
I'm
Yeah.
coming out ahead now,
Yeah.
right? Because
Thanks, Adam.
you guys are both paying taxes. I'm tax free, so I'll be benefiting from your contribution to the tax pool, right? This is great.
That's great. All right. So Russell, you said that you were in IT at one point.
Correct.
So what did you do in IT?
So I was mostly on the sales side.
Mm-hmm.
I worked both as a sales account manager and a technical sales executive,
Mm-hmm.
helping customers understand the technologies that I was selling.
Okay. So then how did you get into business brokerage
Oh my
industry?
God. So, this, how much time do we
Yeah.
have? So, a roundabout way, I got out of technology and started a business. Actually, I started a business before I even got into technology. That first business is actually what drove me to have an interest in technology because I bought my first desktop computer, Packard Bell, for $3,000.
Yeah. It's probably
And
worth
got
$3,000 now.
yeah, and got introduced to the internet, paying $2 a minute. I mean, I'm old. And so that taught me about technology, got interested in it. So I got into technology. Fast forward a few years, I decided I didn't want to be part of that corporate umbrella. And so I started owning businesses again.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward another 20 years, I sold my last business and I started looking at buying another business and started interacting with brokers in the area. I didn't like what I saw I'm just being brutally honest. And
Mm-hmm.
so my wife is the one that said, maybe this is what you're supposed to be doing, is
Mm-hmm.
actually helping business owners.
Yeah.
You've been one for 30 years. Maybe it's time to give back. And so that's how I got into business brokerage.
Well, cool. Well, Peter and I are both business owners, and then I spent time investment banking, institutional sales, so I know those people too. Go ahead, Peter.
Do you have a specialty then? Do you like specialize with IT businesses, or are you more general?
I'm more general
Okay.
because my background is extremely diverse.
Okay.
So I don't put myself in a corner to say I only do IT, I only do restaurants, I only do funeral homes. I work with a lot of different companies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm curious, so as like so if I as a recovering IT services business owner wanted to diversify and beyond just say real estate, stocks, bonds, etc., and I wanted to buy a business, is that something that I could do in a relatively hands-off manner? Or if I buy a business, should I anticipate that I'm going to have to run this thing, put in all the elbow grease, do all like first one in the door, turning on the lights, last one out, locking up? What's that like these days?
So I get 4 to 5 calls a week with that same question, people looking to invest in a business.
Mm-hmm.
Are they out there? Yes, there are some businesses out there that they call them absentee owner, where they have the business infrastructure actually built out correctly, where they have
Mm-hmm.
managers, they have staff, they have the technicians in place. My answer when people ask me this is, how much are you looking to spend?
Mm-hmm.
Because these type of businesses are typically going to be on the higher end. And when I say higher end, expect to pay 10, 15 or million or more.
Okay.
The lower price businesses typically don't have enough cash flow to support that infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if they do, it's usually one manager that's managing the office, doing multiple roles, managing the technicians.
Mm-hmm.
I caution people, can you buy that business? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But be prepared. Because if that one manager leaves, you are now the manager of that business.
You're now the manager. Yep. It's not like I haven't seen that a dozen times in my career. So,
I like to caution people. I'm very cards on the table. You know, my job is to sell businesses, and I tell people this is not for you. I do. You know, don't buy this particular business because you have a full-time job or you already own another business that you're working 40 to 60 hours a week. Can you afford to do that twice? Because if you do acquire this business and that manager leaves, either you're going to lose your investment or you're working 90 hours to 100 hours a week.
Yep.
Which do you want to do?
Neither, please.
Well, and that's the reality. So, and I try to be extremely honest with people. I want them to understand what that truly means. I talked to a gentleman the other day. He owned 54 businesses around the country. Now, he had a massive staff in place,
Mm-hmm.
right, to allow him to do that. So can it be done? Absolutely. I know people in the Nashville market that owned 8 to 10 businesses right now, and they're looking to acquire more because they built the staff around themselves. So if a manager does quit, they can put somebody there. It's not the owner or the investor.
Mm-hmm.
So plan accordingly. If this is what you want to do, instead of getting into the market and residential, you want to invest in business, build your infrastructure as a business, get the people in place. It's a business owning businesses. So it all applies the same manner.
Mm-hmm.
Put that in place, then go start buying stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to help you.
Yeah. Well, you know, and there's also the fine line that you have to thread of when you're buying or selling a business. But in Peter's scenario where you're talking about buying a business that's an investment, the business has to have enough profitability to make it buyable, because you have to put money up to buy it. So it's got to be making enough money to be profitable and at least pay back, you know, if you're cash flowing it, if you just want to, you know, eventually get this money back, you know, maybe you don't ever have plans to actually pay it off, but it's got to make enough money to pay back the loan or pay towards the loan and pay the person who bought it. So that's you know, it's got to be a healthy business in order to even be bought.
Yeah. In which case, it's going to be probably come along with a healthy price tag.
Yeah.
Correct. There's a lot of caveats to that. It's an investment, right? I mean, if that is your goal and you want to buy a business as an investment, most people are not going to buy it cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you want return on that money as fast as possible.
Yep.
So they're going to finance it. And so, yeah, you look at putting the least amount down, and everybody's looking for seller financing right now,
Mm-hmm.
business owner
question.
financing. So if you can get it, great. But then, yes, as Adam pointed out, is there enough cash flow to pay that note and pay you?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And then what's the whole point of buying that business? Are you looking to grow it or maintain?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right? Because it's just like your regular business. At some point, you're going to exit that business.
Mm-hmm.
So are you looking to get what you put into it or looking to gain from it? So have a business plan put together. Be prepared.
What
know
a
what
novel
you're getting
idea.
into.
So would you say, do you have more success, do you think, where with active owner operators coming in rather than, the hands-off style, or do you deal with, plenty of those premium, 10 to $15 million jobbies where people can just buy and set and forget?
It work. I've seen both. I've seen
Hmm.
success in both. If on the smaller side, definitely an owner operator is typically better suited
Hmm.
for smaller price tag businesses, what we call Main Street. Now, if you're buying into the larger companies that have that infrastructure, it's such a different market right now. It's kind of very similar to the residential market, where
Hmm.
you have these big investment companies, right? Like BlackRock. They're buying houses
Yep.
faster than any organization in the United States.
Yep.
They're the biggest investor in residential real estate. The same equity type businesses are now doing the same with businesses. The larger ones that have infrastructure in place and have that cash flow, they're buying them. So for an individual to go in and buy one of these very lucrative cash flowing businesses is becoming more difficult because the price is being driven up.
Hmm.
So but I've seen success on both sides, to answer your
Mhm.
question, in a long way.
So I've got a question for you. In the brokerage business today, kind of a general economy question, how would you say the business is in the United States right now in the buying and selling?
It's steady.
It's steady.
Um, well, that's kind of a benefit of being a business broker, quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly. When times are tough, people sell
Mm-hmm.
to get out of their business.
Mm-hmm.
When
When
times are
times are good,
good,
people buy,
people
right?
sell
Yeah, people
Oh,
sell.
I thought
because
that's when
they
they
want the
buy.
benefit of it. So we kind of, I don't want to say we're recession proof, but we are pretty well insulated. There's always businesses selling, kind of like real estate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, it's a little bit better, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
than real estate, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good. So are there, what would cause an ebb and flow? I mean, what causes buying slow down or really nothing?
So what causes buying slowdown? It's not, how do I say this? So it's industry specific.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take IT.
Mm-hmm.
If we get a lot of IT companies coming into the market, that whole sector is going to slow down.
Okay.
Saturation, right?
It's a saturation rate. So there's a lot of competition. So there's only so many buyers for IT companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you're actually going to see two things happen. One, the market's going to soften, prices are going to come down
Mm-hmm.
because there's just not enough buyers for IT companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then IT companies are going to look at the market. If they're listening to the broker and the broker knows what the hell they're doing, sorry, I probably shouldn't have swore. Um,
PG-13, you're well within the bounds.
okay.
Yeah.
um, they should be advising these companies maybe now is not the right time to list. So you'll see sectors soften, like the real estate market. That's been really tough since
Mm-hmm.
COVID, right? But then I saw a report 3 days ago saying restaurants are coming back. They're actually starting to sell now. Prices are starting to bump up
Mm-hmm.
for profitable restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's the caveat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the ebb and flow of business brokerage. You're going to have sectors that come in and out.
Mm-hmm. And what's kind of the most common business that you see being sold? Is there? Or just
No,
it's always a mixed bag?
always.
I
Again, it seems to be an ebb and flow.
mm-hmm.
Recently, well, I wish I could get my hands on more service businesses to the home,
Okay.
HVAC, plumbing, electrical, any pest control, cleaning services. Those are hot right now. Everybody wants to buy one,
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is nobody's selling one,
Yeah.
right? Or very limited. And when they hit the market, you better be prepared to pay
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
because that's what the buyers are wanting right now.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are soft is real estate
Mm-hmm.
industries. Those are a little bit soft right now, unless you're really profitable. If
Okay.
you have, but that's anytime you put a business on the market that's run correctly, they're going to sell. There's
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
always a buyer for that type of business. Always. I don't care what the sector is.
Yeah.
If you're not doing things correctly and buyers see that, they're going to pass, they're going to wait,
Mm-hmm.
quite honestly. And right now, real estate's one of them.
Yeah. Well, Peter and I are both IT guys, and so I'm curious how is the IT market right now?
So I actually just looked up that market for a client, and the market's good.
Market's good.
Market's good. I actually know of buyers that are looking for IT companies,
Mm-hmm.
and that price ranges.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have buyers that want to buy 30 to $50 million IT companies right now,
Yeah.
if they can get their hands on them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I get emails every week. I get a broker from it. It's funny though. So I spent time in investment banking, and so I have an inherent distrust already already because I know those guys, and so it's hard to find. I still don't. It's funny that I ran into because I don't even I don't know anybody that I would trust to sell my business or help me buy a business because I'm afraid I'm going to get screwed one way or another. Uh, you know, in the whole process. So how do you even find a right broker?
Well, that's how I became a broker, right? Well, and this is, I'm not lying. So I was looking to buy a business. And I do what everybody does, right? We go to these websites and we look for the business that we want to buy. So
Hmm.
I found one. It was listed with the broker, contacted the broker, got the information, looked at it. Okay. I wanted more information. I wanted to see the financials because I was very interested. They get proof of funds. And so I get the financials. I look at them. I call the broker. I said, hey, you realize this business is going to be out of business in 4 months. And he's like, oh, no, it's not. It's an X amount dollar business. I said, what you're asking has nothing to do. Well, it should, but in your case, has nothing to do with the financials. You just threw a price out there to see if you could get it. And he told me I was full of crap and it's a really good listing and, have a nice day.
Hmm.
Well, I got a call 5 months later from that same broker saying, hey, that business closed their doors. How did you know? Well, kind of like you, Adam. I'm like, well, isn't that your job?
Yeah.
Isn't this what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
I mean, as a business broker, you typically work with the person who's selling and the person who's buying.
Hmm.
And my motto is you be upfront, honest, and transparent.
Hmm.
You don't hide anything. You know what the heck you're talking about,
Hmm.
and you provide that information so people can make a wise decision on both ends.
Hmm.
So, my what I advise people, if you're not going to use us, that's fine. I get it.
Hmm.
There's a lot of brokers out there. There truly are. And there's some really good ones.
Hmm.
Ask your broker the questions. How are they evaluating their businesses that they're
Hmm.
listing? How are they doing it?
Yeah.
What was the justification behind it?
Hmm.
Okay. If they're evaluating their own businesses, they have a matrix that they use.
Yeah.
They should have resources that you can tap into to get what we call multipliers. What is this business worth based on either EBITDA or seller discretionary earnings? In extreme rare cases based on revenue.
Mm.
What are those multipliers to justify that price? They should know this. If they can't give it to you, call another broker
Mm-hmm.
because they're listing only on what they think a business is worth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what you're doing in the buying process, because that broker is not going to help you because obviously they didn't list correctly,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to help you on the buying side. They're looking to make a sale and they don't care what for either side, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So shop around.
Yeah.
Find somebody that you can ask those questions and they can answer them.
Mm-hmm.
My personal opinion.
Yeah. Well, and so is it common? So if somebody either wants to buy or they want to sell, um, it's my impression that it's really farming. You almost have to have a relationship with somebody before they're ready to sell or buy, so that you can help them either prepare one way or another. Whether if they want to sell, okay, well, these numbers are terrible. You're not going to make, you're a good company, but you're drawing all the money out, so you make the company look not profitable. So, let's shape things up, but then also advising on both sides of that. So, am I right? It should be farming like that.
Correct. And that's why you get a call every week,
Mm-hmm.
right? From brokers or companies looking to sell your business or wanting you to list your business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very difficult. So normally we get a call when somebody wants to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then we walk in, and as you mentioned, Adam, we look at the financials and go, okay, you're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I want to.
Yeah.
But you're not ready.
Yeah.
And buyers want to see 3 years of clean financials.
Mm-hmm.
And what does clean mean?
And what does clean mean?
Thank you, Peter.
I'm glad you asked. I was curious.
Bear says, I've got a box out back. It's got all kinds of numbers in it. What do we want to see?
So what buyers don't want to see is personal expenses on the books for a business. They don't want to hear, I am showing $500,000 in revenue, but I have another 100,000 that I'm not claiming. But trust me, it's there.
Trust me.
Right. They don't want to see vehicles that you're paying for that are not going to be staying in the business. They don't want to see huge travel expenses. Again, it falls into personal. It's all these things that unfortunately businesses are being advised by the wrong people that they should do to offset paying taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Bad decision. And we can show that justification 100 ways over
Mm-hmm.
that it's a bad decision.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I know everybody's going to yell at me, it's illegal.
Yeah.
It truly is.
So
Go ahead.
I'm curious, when you work with, there's like, what percentage of your customers would you say get that and appreciate that? Because I've worked with, so I probably, been in business now for decades. I could probably make a similar transition if I wanted to, but I've worked with a number of small businesses, startups, and not like Tufts University or Tuck School of Business startups, but like I started walking dogs and now I've owned a couple of, I have a couple of other folks, or I teach yoga and now there are two of us, little mom and pop shop. And they just don't seem to get the idea of separation of business and personal, right? And it's the name of this podcast, Blurring the Lines, right? Those lines, sometimes they don't even exist. They're not blurry. But even when I had my business and I had a bookkeeper, I was married at the time, and neither my ex-wife nor my bookkeeper seemed to understand. Like, I owned a consulting business, I owned a coffee shop, I owned a software development business, and I had real estate.
Web
And I had
development too.
personal. Well, web is part of the consulting,
That's
one business, and web hosting part of that business, right? But so web hosting, consulting, IT, sure, that's one bucket. It was one company. Got it. Coffee shop, not the same.
Correct.
Personal groceries, right? Ex-wife, you don't use the corporate card to pay for groceries, right? But I had to. No, you didn't, right? Bookkeeper, don't pay the real estate sewer and water bill out of the corporate company. Just because all the money is there doesn't mean you use that. And I was setting up a dog walking service, and the owner just did not, her brain could not wrap around the concept of, here's one account for all your business stuff, save your receipts, track it all different. You get a credit card. Anything you do for business, you buy this card. That seems hard. And I just said, in that case, owning a business can be hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Adulting is hard.
Adulting is hard, right? So I'm just curious, how does that, do you run into that a lot, or do most of your, customers, they've got their act together going to, this is like a 14-part question.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot? Do folks, coming into your, getting your services pretty much have their act together? And out of those who don't, how many of them are able to successfully transition and say, oh, we should have been, you know what? That makes perfect sense. We're going to establish a firewall right now. Near the twain shall meet. So there, I set you up. Take it away.
Okay. So 90%, 95% of the businesses that I have been in contact with do not understand that a business account is for the business. So I answered that.
Yep.
Now, when I get engaged and I look at that and I tell them, this is not your personal piggy bank. If you truly want to get the best value for your business, you can't sell for 3 years. That's my response. Now, the seller can do whatever they want. They can say, you know what? I don't care. I'm burnt out. I need to leave this business today. And they're going to get a lower value than what they should. They understand that going in. Now, I am working with companies right now that they are on the 3-year plan. We tell them exactly what they need to do to clean up their books, to make that side of it more valuable. Me as a broker, I actually give advice because of the experience I have. And I let them know it's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I'm not a business consultant, but here's my free opinion for your business. And you can take it or leave it. Now, there's actually a company that's been on my plan for a year. They increased their business by 30% by doing the right things. It wasn't major changes. We didn't change their business. We just changed how they did business. And now, and longer story, different topic. But so we can guide people in the right direction. And now it's up to them to actually do it. Right? We can't force anybody to do anything. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to mention something because I don't think people realize this. When you form a corporation, a true corporation, it's a separate person. It's an entity, right? If you are running things through there personally, you are stealing, number one, from that entity.
Well, all small business owners are crooks. Peter and I know that. So go ahead.
Well, the other thing is you just screwed your corporate veil, right? You form a corporation to isolate you from the liability of that business. The first time you take a penny out of that business personally, you just destroyed that veil. You, as you say, you blurring the lines. You blurred that lines where an attorney, the first thing that they're going to do if you get sued is go through your financials. The reason they're doing it is they're looking for any personal expenses.
Yep.
When they find that penny, now they can go after you personally because you just use it as a personal account. You're no longer protected by that veil.
Now, what if you goofed up one time, but you classified it as owner's draws and reimbursed it?
That's different. If you screw up and you classify it as what it truly is,
Right.
that's legit.
Yeah. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Now,
because I definitely
have to
have
put in
been, you know, like,
quotations. You
yeah.
must talk to your tax advisor, CPA,
Yeah.
attorney
Absolutely.
to make
and
sure
the
that's all
views,
legal in your case.
right? And the views expressed on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of anybody.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. It makes me feel pretty good because I've just always, I don't know, somebody along the road a long time ago told me, you know, how to handle the finances, and all your business is one silo and your private is another. And so whenever I'm doing anything in my business account that comes to me, I identify it as why it's coming to me. You know, I don't use the corporate credit card to buy Christmas presents or even to buy family dinner. I don't, you know, and like, oh, well, I reimburse the company back for, but no, I have two credit cards, a personal and a business. And it's
Brilliant.
really easy, you know, and it does get complicated. I only have two businesses. You know, you could argue once you have a business, you have all kinds of businesses within the business, but it does get squirrely when I'm taking money out of one company to move it into the other. I personally classify that as I paid Adam, and then Adam gave that company money just to keep the trail.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel good. I'm in the 4%. I'm a dumbass in some other way. Yeah.
But not that way.
Not that way.
That's the
not
important
that
part.
way.
So I've got more questions too. So if a company, I'm an IT company and I would like to buy another IT company because I'm a certain age. I realize if I ever want to reach the growth potential that I want to achieve, I'm never going to achieve that organically. I'm either going to have the best salesperson on the planet and the best onboarding team, or I'm going to have to grow exponentially by acquisition. So if I want to buy an IT company, or any company for that matter, how much cash should I plan on having, as a plan to buy this company? So let's say the company's a $2 million company.
Okay. So typical is 10%.
10%.
That's just your down payment.
Right.
Now the rules change a little bit. If you want, okay, I'll keep it simple. If you're going to get an SBA loan, we'll just use SBA for right now. If you are acquiring a company in an industry that you're already in, you can actually buy that company for almost 1% down.
Oh, wow.
It's basically zero down. They call it the expansion loan with the SBA. So you can actually buy another business with very little money down. So if you're not expanding, you're just buying a business, expect minimum 10% down, then bank fees, and you're going to need some cash for cash flow, depending on the circumstances of the business that you're buying. Does it have enough cash flow to pay the loan and pay you and itself, right? So those are all the things that you have to look at when you're going to buy the business. And this is why you get all the financials. You have to break it down.
Okay. And when an SBA loan, is that kind of a generic wrapper that you just get from a bank that does qualify for SBA loans?
Okay. So a lot of banks can do SBA loans. Okay. And it's interesting. And I learned a lot as I became a business broker.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see banks that will jump into the SBA arena when things are really hot,
Mm-hmm.
and then they pull back out.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, and in my opinion only, is find a lender that does SBA loans permanently all the
All the
time.
time. Yeah. Okay.
There are rankings and lists of banks that do the most SBA loans. I would tend to use one of them
Mm-hmm.
because the SBA process is not easy.
Really.
No, it
Mhm.
it's extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Cards on the table. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
What makes it easier is to have that person who does 100 a year,
Okay.
200 a year. They know what the SBA is going to be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And if the bank is big enough and does enough SBA loans, they are actually the underwriter themselves for the SBA loan.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of sending the loan to the SBA to be underwritten.
Okay.
You want to drag this out 90, 120, 180 days, go with that bank. If you want to close 60 to 90 days, go with the banks that have the experience that do their own underwriting.
Okay. All right. And then, so I had a question in there. Um, oh, now I remember. Why not go VC, venture capital?
What do you mean?
Well, you need 10%. Why not borrow it from one of these sharpshooters?
I can tell you that answer.
I know we're just talking here.
But I don't want to. I don't want to step on our guests' toes, though.
Oh, no, go, feel free. I want to hear your answer.
Yeah.
What venture capitalist is going to buy? I mean, unless you're dealing in like startups and things that are projecting exponential explosive growth, I don't think a VC is going to be interested in what
Probably
your
not.
average market.
Not in that small, unless maybe they could, unless you were pitching something like, I'm going to build the biggest IT company in the United States, and step one is buying this company. But go ahead, Russell.
So there is somebody out there who will lend you money for anything, right? They're out there.
Hmm.
I know buyers who are doing crowdfunding for their down payments. So
Sure.
it's all there.
Hmm.
So can you go to a VC to get your 10% down? Sure,
Hmm.
you can. Now, you're not going to get an SBA loan
Hmm.
with, now I should have asterisk. Now, I did hear recently that they are actually changing their rules
Hmm.
where they will accept outside funds as the down payment, providing
Uh-huh.
that the buyer has enough funds in reserves to cover that loan.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why that people do this, but that's fine. Again, use other people's money, right?
Hmm.
That's the old golden rule. And some people take it to the nth degree.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
So,
funny. Go ahead.
no, yes, you can get money.
Hmm.
There's people that will loan you that money.
Yeah, I told you I was a Dave Ramsey fan, so this conversation just makes my guts clench up, thinking that I owe somebody 10% of, that one, I've got to make the company profitable, and I got to pay back this loan, and I got to, all these, like, oh, that just makes me, nauseous. Yeah.
So you're talking about you're going to get 10% for your down payment, but they're going to take 10% of your company.
Yeah.
You'll be lucky they only take 10%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll be very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
More than likely it'll be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Then yes, now you have that person on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like at least from a conservative standpoint, if you're in an industry and you wanted to expand your industry and you had the ability to scale, meaning you have resources, you don't need their operations manager, you don't need their shipping, and you don't need their accounts receivable, but you can take their clients, their tools, their team, and integrate them into yours. It's profitable from the start. And if you save that 10% that you can come up with the down and the money makes sense, that's going to be the most logical growth pattern.
Absolutely. And in your circumstance, if you want to go buy another IT company, you don't even have to put 10% down. So there's a savings.
Mm-hmm.
If they are doing exactly what you're doing, the
Mm-hmm.
consolidation of even data centers and equipment is a huge cost savings, right? Than
Yeah.
what that business owner had to pay. So even with their cash flow that they're showing as their net, when you calculate your actual profitability in acquiring that company,
Mm-hmm.
it could be tremendous because you are eliminating, and I don't want to call it waste, but excess cost that you're not going to incur
Mm-hmm.
as the person buying that business. So that's the whole benefit for somebody like you to go in and buy other IT companies in your space. Low cost of barrier entry, reduced cost of the expenses of the acquiring company. Yes, that's why you see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, I know another IT company that they're much larger than me, and they've been buying up other IT companies, and they're building a super MSP. And kind of their model is he's financing it through bank money. He's not doing so he's just taking a loan one way or another, as a personal loan against his company and his money already to do that. Is that a sound strategy, or is it kind of risky?
Well, anytime you take a loan out, I don't care where you get the loan from, it's risk,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things happen in life, things happen in business. So even, and it's kind of worst case scenario in that respect. If you do the SBA, no money down, you're basically financing 99% of that business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now that's debt.
Yeah.
And the way the SBA works, it's debt on everything you own.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a misstep, you messed up on the numbers and you didn't figure out the cash flow accurately and you start missing payments, yes, there's a lot of liability there. No
Mm-hmm.
question. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it can be a huge benefit to the right people that understand what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what you're doing and you are growing, especially too fast, and you keep acquiring, there's costs associated with that as well. There's always fees. So
Yeah.
you are putting cash toward it. Even if you still finance 99% of it, you are really putting, in my opinion, just my opinion, putting yourself at a risk
Uh-huh.
because any misstep, because now you are big, right? You
Mm-hmm.
went, let's say, from $1 million company to a $10 million company. That's 10 times what you were. And now you have 10 times the debt.
Mm-hmm.
So those 10 businesses better all function as they should or better,
Mm-hmm.
because if one drops, they all drop. It's a domino.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it can be done. I mean, successfully. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It just,
Well, so I'd sent you a slide. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. So I'll post it in our show notes. But so this was Robin Robbins from Technology Marketing Toolkit, our boot camp, and the numbers were that there are 33.3 million firms in the United States, businesses, so own businesses, and out of those businesses, the less than $1 million in revenue is 90%, 96% of all of those businesses. So, and then the next step up, and then the 4% is greater than 1 million. And then the next big jump is greater than 10 million at 0.4%. And then above 50 million is the 0.1. So there is a huge disparity between the richest companies, and the bottom. And I kind of sent some numbers. We're not going to have time to go over the kind of scenarios that I threw your way, but it was kind of more along the point of any business that's less than 1 million, a 750,000 or a $600,000 company is a completely different creature than a $4 million company. And I almost think it would be, the margins be so small in those sales.
In which?
In the smaller companies. So the $600,000 company that sells, is that, or is it all about the profit and it doesn't matter about the top line?
Well, it all matters,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of margin to be made with businesses that do under $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
I just sold one.
Okay.
It was under $1 million selling price.
Mm-hmm.
The cash flow on it was 400 grand.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Oh, that's ideal.
Yeah.
I mean, there are businesses out there that generate really good profit margins, right? Because you do have a steward in the owner that understands what cost of goods is and what expenses are, and they keep an eye on it. They're fiscally responsible for that business. So you could do a lot of profit in a business that's under $1 million. You don't have to be 4 million. You don't have to be 10 million to have profit. And I would almost disagree. The larger you get, your margins get smaller.
Okay.
Because the overhead is so much greater.
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced that in owning my company, that if you're not careful, you're creating a rat race for yourself. Every time I get more business, I got to get more people, which then gives me more headache, and I got to get more bills to pay for this. I got to get more. And so my growth is one thing, but then the margin stays the same, and I just have more headache. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's great that you know this, that you're paying attention to it, because you're in the top 4%, right? And you're just giving a perfect example of that. The other 96% doesn't even consider it, and they keep growing. I'm going to sell more. I want to grow my revenue, which means I have to hire more. I have to do this more, and they're not making any more.
You're losing 10% more. Yeah, I'll make it up on volume.
Work harder, Peter.
So I think that's awesome that you know that, and it would be great if every business owner had that knowledge and knew to pay attention to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Russell does on his podcast is make businesses aware of things that they need to know. Well, cool. Well, Peter, do you have any additional questions?
I think we've pretty much covered everything off pretty well. So, I know that, since I am otherwise engaged and don't have time to run a new business, I think I will revisit my plan and maybe go back to real estate. And, but if that was to change, I'll give Russell a call. Or Adam, maybe I'll give Adam and Russell a call, and Adam can help broker some, or Russell can broker some kind of deal here or something. But I think we should probably wrap things up. So, dear listener, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find us at blurringthelinespodcast.com. Adam can be found on the socials at Sublime Comp or sublimecomp.com, or also rlavenderfarm.com. I can be found at Nikolaidis.com. If you're smart enough to spell my name, then we can talk. And Russell, how can people find you?
You can find me at First Choice Business Brokers of East Tennessee or Nashville. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me. That's actually probably the best way. Or you can actually find me with the Business Advocate podcast. Search for that. You'll find me there as well.
And we'll put links to all those in the show notes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
Cool.
you.
So, Russell, it's tradition when we have a guest here that we let them push the big red button, and that's when we stop recording. So if you would like, you can go ahead and tell us to push the big red button.
Push that big red button.